Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to Raw Law Unfiltered with your host, the DUI Guy Plus. It has certainly been a hot minute, hasn't it, folks? Gosh, life comes at you fast sometimes, but you know what? That's what makes life all the more beautiful, in my opinion, because if there were no obstacles, if there were no hindrances or difficulties or what have you, I think life wouldn't be as interesting to live, to be completely honest with you. Um, and as you all know, I made a pact well, I wouldn't really call it a pact, maybe simply a goal to stream every single day back in November. And I kind of lived by that goal for the most part through the months of November, December, January, February. Now, March, the beginning of March was going rather well, but then it just kind of started slipping a little bit due to, like I said, my own personal life, if you will, getting in the way. Business is going well, life is getting better. It's just sometimes you have little things that you have to address. I went on vacation for a couple weeks. I definitely wasn't going to be streaming there. Vacation followed by a workcation. I was out of the office for 2 weeks. So what does it matter what I'm doing? And I came back to some issues of my own that I had to resolve. So I figured I was already off, rather than get back into a streaming schedule. It just seemed more logical to go ahead and take care of that first, and then potentially maybe get back into a streaming schedule. I don't know if I will. I'll be honest with you all. I mean, we're literally this close to 300,000 subscribers, and the shorts and the TikToks and the shorts on YouTube that we're making are getting us there. I thought, I would have to constantly pump out, create content in order to get the engagement, and I was proven wrong. I hired a company. I don't know if you all remember, those of you who are the more dedicated viewers, you know that I've been struggling. I had hired this one individual, and it's not his fault. English is not his first language. I had to kick him to the curb because I had to start doing about 50% of the work of the editing of the shorts that he was giving me to post on the channel. I mean, I became like a part-time job on my own hire. I became his assistant, which is not something you want to be. When you hire someone, you want to delegate. You want to let them create the content and do whatever they got to do. Well, anyway, the long and short of it is I found someone, and they are a godsend. They're an absolute godsend. And I've been watching my numbers, and they know how to do their stuff. I'm very impressed. And that also allowed me to kind of recede from YouTube to allow them to take over with the shorts. I know it's not the same. You don't have me and my ugly mug talking at you on your big screen TV or on your little iPad or on your tiny little phone screen. I get it. I know. But you know what? Sometimes in life, you can't always get what you want, which is a phenomenal song, by the way. And I wish I could deliver. If it was up to me, I would be on screen every minute of every day, talking to you all, interacting, talking about the latest, talking about trials like the Zachariah Anderson trial that we're about to get into. We got Solomon backstage, is his brother. His brother is going to be talking to us about it today. So if it were up to me, I would be covering all of those things and streaming 8 hours a day, every day. But unfortunately, it's not always possible. So I don't want to predict the future. I don't want to put the cart before the horse, because I don't know what my life is going to be like when I get back from Italy. I definitely don't plan on streaming as much while I'm in Italy. I'm not saying I'm not going to at all, but I just don't have anything in the works. I've just been working on polishing up the channel so far with my thumbnail maker, where I'm trying to literally do a makeover for the entire channel, and that takes time. And the addition of new content obviously will come in due course. So don't go anywhere. Be sure to stick around because you don't know. You might miss it. But I just want to reassure you, I'm doing much better. I'm working on resolving my own personal things in life. And you know what? When you work on them, they get better. It's when you ignore them and you try to pretend that they're not there, that's an issue. So, with all of that in mind, before I welcome my special guest for today, I want you all, as soon as he walks in, or metaphorically into the virtual room, to congratulate him because he had just, I mean, literally yesterday, from what I understand, last night, and he brought them in this morning, he had a baby with his significant other. So as soon as he comes in, I want the chat to be exploding with congratulations. Okay, are you guys ready? I want chat to be exploding with congratulations. You ready? Here he comes. Hey, Solomon.
How you doing, Larry?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Well, I've had much shorter days. I tell you that. It's been a heck of a ride the last, I guess at this point, less than 36 hours. So at 6 a.m. yesterday, my partner and I greeted our brand new baby boy, brand new Anderson, to the family, and it's been a long day with very little sleep, but I still made it. I just brought him home from the hospital, so she's upstairs with our little newborn right now.
That's amazing. And you did warn us, and I just want to warn chat. If you all hear a crying baby in the background, now you know why.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So thank you everybody for the congratulations. I appreciate it. And I just hope that before he turns 10, that Zach has an opportunity to meet him in person.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. That brings us very neatly to our main event. Full disclosure, I basically, since the conversation that we had, I think over Twitter or Facebook, whatever it was, I told you that I know less than nothing about the trial. And today I know even less than when I did when we spoke.
That's fair.
So that's just want to make sure that we're on the same page. I did not watch the trial. I know everybody has been messaging me, telling me like, here's the link. I'll show you this. Here's the digest. I'm like, I don't have time. I just don't have time. I especially with the hectic life that I have right now. I mean, I wish I could, but I have been approached by enough people to where I have decided it to be prudent to give you a platform, to give you an opportunity. I know you've appeared on several smaller channels, and mine is really not all that big. We're only approaching 300,000 subscribers. And I say that tongue in cheek because there are people out there with, 5 million, 10 million, 50 million subscribers.
Yeah.
So I pale in comparison to their size. But for the least I can do is to give you an opportunity to share Zach's story in a way to the people who might not be familiar, including myself, with what on earth happened in that case, why there is so much traction, why there are these groups on Facebook and Twitter and all of that popping up in support of Zach. It's quite unusual. Normally, when you have somebody convicted of murder, they are kind of shunned and pushed to the side. Obviously the jury got it right, blah, 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 blah. Sometimes you have a small fraction like, oh, they got it wrong, like in the Kyle Rittenhouse case, which it was the same judge in this case as it was in the Kyle Rittenhouse case. For those of you unfamiliar, by God, check it out. Nick Requeta has covered that trial extensively when it was going on in November of 2021. But I digress. So now we have this very seemingly comparatively large pocket of people who are crying foul about this trial. let's begin there. Why is that? What's going on?
So you're right. In just our Facebook group, we've got over 700 members of people, of just people that watched the trial, that saw that the verdict didn't match what was presented in evidence. And we have a situation where in this, we have the prosecutor mouthing testimony along with, simultaneously with people testifying in the stand. We have a prosecutor nodding, right, as before people answer questions on the stand. We have a prosecutor that's giving awkward hand signs of a thumbs up, who's systematically giving multiple choice leading questions, with the right answer being the last option, repeatedly, all on camera. We have a situation where my brother sat in jail for 33 months waiting trial, where we had even the Chief Justice of the Second District Court recuse himself of making a decision on the case, but still refused to let him seek trial in a different district court, for fair trial, and to respect his constitutional right to a speedy trial. We have a judge that was dismissing motions by the defense before he even read them. We just have a situation where justice was purely and obviously not served. We have a family court case wrapped into a criminal trial that only created something that is a weird amalgam of something that people relate to in the public domain. A lot of people have seen, custody battles turn, ugly or questionable, and people going for silver bullet, arguments in custody fights, and we have that wrapped into a criminal accusation, a criminal finger point accusation by my brother's ex, my brother's, the mother of my brother's children, unfortunately, and we have a prosecutor that used the word maybe. I can't even remember the number of times in his closing statement. So you have a prosecutor that says, well, maybe he did this, maybe he did this, and maybe he did this. And it's fundamentally unsound with the presumption of innocence for a prosecutor to throw a hypothetical to a jury and say, well, maybe this could have happened, and then for the jury to turn around with four counts of guilty. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't logically make sense. The facts that were presented were not consistent, were not sound. They had 15 police agencies that investigated and tried to hang this crime on my brother, and 400 pieces of evidence that were submitted to the crime lab, and only one of the 400 placed the missing person with my brother in any way, shape, or form. This is a situation where coincidence outweighs what was argued and presented by the prosecutor, and it was only a fight of misinformation. You had the prosecutor's PR person making press releases to the local media, running a smear campaign effectively as soon as they arrested my brother, painting him as this wicked man, this cold-blooded murderer that definitely did this out of spite and jealousy, with incorrect misinformation that was spewed forth into the public domain. So you already set it up to be a trial by mob by doing that as a prosecutorial entity, and then underhanded tactics after that was caught on camera, frankly, and thank goodness it was, because if this trial hadn't been televised live like it was, people would have written him off as just another the murderer on the books, right? But the issue really came to a point where it was obvious on camera that there were things that were not correct and very poorly done, and that they never proved their case. And that's an important aspect in the justice system as it stands, as you're familiar with. You have to prove, that this person is guilty. It is this accused person, whomever it may be, is innocent unless the state can prove their guilt. And that's the bottom line. That's what innocent until proven guilty really means. What have you heard in rumors on the trial? I mean, you haven't seen any of the specific breakdowns. You haven't seen the evidence. What have you been told by the mob as it stands?
So I have seen clips and snippets of certain motions that were made. I think most notably was two stand out. First and foremost, when everybody who was watching the trial realized that the judge is watching them, or watching their comments, reading their comments, watching the trial. I mean, talk about a breaking of the fourth wall of the highest order. I mean, this judge is like so bored. It's fine. I mean, you can be as bored as you want as a judge, but now you're using, and this is a question, like, I don't even have the answer. I remember people asking, my favorite question of non-lawyers is, oh my God, is that even legal? You know, and that's such a loaded question, and there is no direct answer most of the time. Everything is legal until someone says it's not, basically, right. Unless there's a law already in place. Like, you know, no one is going to steal someone's wallet and somebody else go, oh my God, is that even legal? You know, because that's an obvious one. Stealing someone's wallet is illegal. It's against the law. That's theft. That's conversion. You're taking someone else's property. But a judge watching a trial, his own trial, I mean, what do you have? You basically have a virtual gallery. You have a gallery that's not sitting in the pews, but they're sitting in their own chairs, on their own couches, in their own beds, in their own homes, watching the trial and then commenting on it. That's the key factor. They're making commentary on the trial, on what they're seeing, on what they're thinking, on what, because normally having a gallery is not a problem, but you don't read their thoughts as they're sitting in the gallery. Now you get a chance to read their thoughts, essentially, is what it boils down to, at least the ones that they choose to voice. And so the men and women who have been commenting on this trial, I don't know if in any way, shape, or form that could have potentially influenced the judge in any way. That's unprecedented. I don't think that has ever happened in the history of American jurisprudence, as far as I know, where a judge was watching a trial as it was happening in their courtroom live, watching commentary about their own trial live with people who have opinions about it as it is going live.
Right.
That's like the ultimate breaking of the fourth wall. That's like you literally watching a movie and the hero walks out of the screen and sits down right next to you on the couch and high fives you and starts having a conversation with you. By the way, if that has ever happened to you, seek like mental verification and assistance, please.
Yeah, that sounds like yeah.
You know, but that's literally what it boils down to. You're now part of the audience, and as a judge, I don't think that is very proper. But at the same time, there's got to be, you know, playing my own devil's advocate, there's no precedent on it that says, no, you may not do that, because that question has never come up. Now, questions that have come up is, obviously, judges cannot be influenced by outside factors. And what is the judge going to do as soon as they watch, read a bunch of comments about people watching their own trial? They're going to say, oh, that didn't influence any of my decisions during the trial. Sure, I did that. Yeah, what's the problem? I didn't influence any of my calls, or I did not take them into consideration. Bullshit. Bullshit. It always does, because the public opinion matters. Judges love to follow the public opinion. Lots of decisions on the Supreme Court level of the United States and each respective state, as well as the courts of appeals. You know, people think that judges are these majestic creatures. No, they're not. At the end of the day, they're human beings. and they like to follow the grain. And what they do a lot of times is, this is what people don't know, is first they reach the result that they want, and then they find the law to craft their way and snake their way into that peg, or snake the peg into the hole that they're trying to get into, basically.
Sure.
That's what people don't realize. They don't just like sit there, analyze the law and see, oh, so this is where we land. Interesting. All right, this is my decision then. It's the other way around.
Right. They approach it with confirmation bias. They're looking to confirm their opinion to begin with and find a loophole in the law to confirm it.
Well, not even a loophole. You just find the applicable law. And
Sure.
9 times out of 10, it's out there because there's just so much stuff. I mean, sometimes it's impossible. Sometimes it's so clear and obvious that there is no way to reach the opposite decision, like, in certain cases. But in like, I don't know, the most common situations where I see it in is police shooting cases, 1983 actions, where they kill a citizen, police kill a citizen using deadly force. And I mean, the facts appear to be on the side of the victim, the deceased. But when all is said and done, you find the court bending over backwards. I had one of my own cases where they did that too, bending over backwards to just say, nah. And they used all that language that the defense was using. And I'm like, how are you not seeing this is a completely different scenario. In my case, he was not attacking people. He was breaking shit. He was attacking cars. He was smashing windows. There were people everywhere. He did not approach them. He did not attack them. He did not hit them. He was not a menace. He was not a threat. He was not, there was no threat of deadly force to anyone, including police. But anyway, I don't want to get into it. It's a very frustrating moment in my career when I lost that case, and I don't want to get into it. But the point, again, I'm trying to make here is bias. The judge in Anderson's case has injected himself into the audience that is discussing the case itself. Now, that's fantastic, right? Let's say that was some sort of violation, because this is how the law works. Let's assume for a moment that it is. What's the remedy? Is there one? What's the policy? What do? Do you file a motion for a mistrial? Do you file a motion for a new trial? Do you file a motion do you just appeal it and see what the Court of Appeals says? Is there a chance of winning? How much has it really influenced? And the more I think about it, and I've been thinking about this for a while, I don't think it really has any bearing on the case. It is a very weak appeal point. Or, I mean, make a motion for a new trial. What's the judge going to say?
Right.
It didn't have any influence on me. Obviously, the jury rendered the decision. It wasn't me. The motion for new trial denied. Your next argument, counselor.
Right.
So that's an easy one.
Specifically, Schrader very specifically removed himself from making, determined verdicts and trying to push everything to jury. He was very cognizant of the fact that overturning a jury verdict is much harder, much more difficult than overturning a judge's decision. So I could see them playing that game of chess where he was trying to make sure that it went to jury. That was his goal the whole time, and he would go to hell or high water to try and do that. Specifically in a lot of aspects, and from what I understood from Schrader's own commentary, is that he was willing to stretch the laws that defined hearsay in this case. He specifically talked about how he was willing to push into an area that was not done previously. This is an abnormal case. He kept saying how abnormal and unique the case was, and how this case was going to rely so heavily on hearsay because the evidence wasn't there. There was no physical evidence that actually connected the crime, which in his own way trying to seal this as a precedential case, right? So you had his own goals, his own bias, trying to push this to be a precedential case because he could redefine hearsay, at least in the state of Wisconsin, if not further and beyond, right? So if the public opinion, or if the opinion seemed to be in his mind, as he expressed, that the judiciary was really really erring on a more loose definition of hearsay than it had classically, done, as far as when he was trained as a lawyer, when ambush tactics were legal and all that other stuff that he talked about. Then he has an opportunity to again put his name on the books as someone that pushed the limits of the law, and then established some precedents in how the law is carried on moving forward. And unfortunately, my brother was a victim of that greed. From our opinion, that's greed, right? Like that is
Sure.
self-motivation to try and ruin a man's life so then you can, immortalize your name. But that's opinion. I don't know. I'm not Judge Schrader. I can't say that was exactly what was going on in his head, but to my understanding or breakdown of his verbiage and what he talked about and how he was interpreting hearsay as a law, which, as he said, there's a novel and a half written on hearsay law that he was trying to interpret and to push through in this case. It still didn't excuse how often he had even said, like, his own words, saying that the objection was the correct objection to the defense, the defense team, but then still denied the objection. That happened repeatedly in this case, and a lot of it didn't make sense. The interpretation of the Denny law, which, if you're not familiar with Wisconsin, with the Wisconsin law, the state of Wisconsin versus Denny, which I think was in 1984, is a case where it redefined how to point the finger or establish a different actor in a crime that you're accused of. So in a case of murder, presenting motive, opportunity, and means that someone else that wasn't the accused committed this crime. And so the Denny motion, as they had talked about, and if you watch some of the legal proceedings in the opening statements by the defense, it was actually interrupted by an objection from the prosecution claiming that what they had said was what would qualify as Denny evidence, which it didn't. It didn't at all, because they didn't establish the big three, right? And if my brother's lawyers intended for it to be that way, they would have filed a Denny motion specifically to point the finger, and that was at Sadie Beecham and Rebecca Jekyll for having a very suspicious conversation that may or may not have implicated that they had organized or set up some malfeasance against my brother. So, in a situation where there were other suspicious actors, the police didn't do due diligence investigating everyone that was connected to this crime, starting at the
Shocker.
and building out. They had a finger point accusation. They had someone that showed up at the crime scene that said, "I think I know who did this. Get him," and weaponized the police. And then they went and did what they were going to do, which was always try and figure out how to confirm their bias that he was the man that committed this crime. And it's fundamentally the wrong thing to do. Sorry, that was a lot.
No. Please. This is your show, man. I'm just riding along. I do agree with everyone, says Rebecca Culver, that the judge absolutely 100% needs to retire. No doubt about it. So I think there's a lot of agreement in the sense of, they pulled the judge out of retirement, I believe, in order to avoid having a change in venue, right? Why did the defense file, to your knowledge, Saul? Mind if I called you Saul?
Yeah, Saul's fine.
So why do you think that they filed for a change of venue in the first place? Why did the defense team think that Zach is not going to get a fair shake in that district, in that jurisdiction?
So there's a couple of things. Schrader had stated that my brother's case was going to be his last criminal case. So he's still trying civil cases to this day, to my understanding, and he's just kind of backed off and done less with his position, if you will. Just tired of doing criminal cases, and this was going to be the last one that he was going to try. The missing man, Rosalio Gutierrez, worked in tandem or close to, as I believe, a court servicer. I'm not sure exactly what his role was, but he knew a lot of the people that worked in the Kenosha court and in the second district court. So personally, almost every judge in the second district had a personal connection to the missing man. That included the DA's office as well.
How?
Because he knew them from working in the courthouse. He bartended in a bunch of bars downtown Kenosha. He knew enough of them that they knew who he was, and there was one judge other than Bruce Schrader that could have potentially have presided over the case, but that judge had like another 3 or 2.5 year wait before he had an opening where he could even take on the trial. So it wasn't feasible. His rights were still violated to speedy trial. So the Chief Justice for the Second District Court, who even openly said, I have to recuse myself of making decisions, while Bruce Schrader was out on medical leave because he had fallen and sustained, I believe, a hip injury, and he had some kind of surgery. If you saw any of the clips, he's got a great big scar on the side of his head. So when he looks at the jury, you can see that there's a big horseshoe-shaped scar in his hairline that wasn't there during the Rittenhouse case. So he was moving a lot slower, and he wasn't as sharp as he was during the Rittenhouse case. And there was, I think, some issues with that. He was lost actually at least one point during the case where he made counsel repeat the back and forth that had occurred, and he said, I don't know what was said. I must have missed it. And that could have been because he was distracted by watching the live feed, as you had pointed out. Or it could be because he was, I don't know, eating an orange. He had fallen asleep to my observation at least once while on the bench. You know, he's tired and he was unwell. So, I mean, he was an adorable grandpa, in my opinion, but was he the right person to try this case? And I would say probably not, all things considered. And if there was no other justice that could preside over the case fairly, right, as a judge is supposed to be, impartial, representing, effectively the father figure in the courtroom, then it should have been kicked to a different district, and that should have been done much earlier. They waited 2 years to release the gag order on communication between Zach and me, and Zach and my eldest brother Josh. So, they tried the dirty prosecutorial tactics of isolation and abusing him in the jail and things like that, trying to get him to break, to confess to the crime, to confess to something that he didn't do. And to this day, he maintains his innocence, absolutely, without question. He did not stalk either of them. He did not commit murder. It did not happen. And that's a rarity, considering that it's 95 or 96% of cases that are brought to criminal trial or something like that, that go to a stage where there is a plea deal offered. That people take it because they're abused by the system. And that doesn't even count. Kenosha is not one of the counties in Wisconsin, but there are, I think, 40 counties, give or take, in the state of Wisconsin that permit the facility, so the county jail, to charge the inmate for their incarceration. So you can, in this case, point the finger at someone, get them arrested, put them in jail for almost 3 years, take away their job, their ability to earn money, effectively make them spend their life savings on counsel, and then also make them rack up a debt to the state for holding them in jail. The whole system is just, it's mind-blowingly incorrect. It's mind-blowingly violating people's rights and ability to defend themselves or to even persevere after being accused of a crime that they're innocent of. Just knocking people down and preventing them from being able to recover.
Sorry, I'm just been highlighting comments as we're going along.
Yeah.
Is there a theory about who may have committed the crime? I'm sure there is. There
was a Denny motion filed against Michael Campbell. I can't go into the details about that. That's all stuff reserved for the appeal, but it was denied by Judge Schrader. which was disappointing. To my understanding, they had the 3 key aspects that you need to file a Denny motion against an individual, and he withheld his decision for a bit and then denied it right before we went to trial this time. I think maybe in jury selection or in the hearing the week before jury selection, he decided to just deny it. But I mean, it's his interpretation of the law. That's what this all comes down to. His willingness to bend hearsay, his willingness to try and get this decision to the jury, and that's what it appeared to be from our perspective, right? That this is a judge that wasn't willing to give my brother a fair trial. He wasn't willing to err on the side of the defense. He even cited very early on, the judge himself said that the defense has the advantage in the courtroom, which is potentially a very old school way of looking at, the criminal justice system. If you take out, mob mentality and what the media has done in the kaleidoscope of where criminal accusations have gone, and especially in the last 20, 30 years, because
Right.
there's the 48 hours effect, there's the CSI effect, there's these media outlets that have presented criminal justice in a way that have warped a juror's perception of justice. And with that, if you take all of that out of the vacuum, perhaps then the defense has some sort of advantage because they are presumed innocent, right?
Mm.
But the
Yeah.
reality is that the prosecution, the state, has unlimited resources. They have expanded rights. They can arrest people or detain them and question them, right? And they can effectively try and build an argument, stack charges. They can offer deals to people to rat on you in jail, which also happened in my brother's case. There's all kinds of stuff that they can do to manipulate others for false testimony with no consequence. I think there's a bit from John Oliver on the what was it on his HBO show that he talked about prosecutorial misconduct and how there was one prosecutor that had ever actually seen jail time for misconduct, for literally lying to a jury.
And I
I
believe it
don't
was
know
one day. If that's
how
the same case we're thinking about, is that it's the 3 white suburban gentlemen who were accused of rape, and the prosecutor blatantly lied about something. I can't remember what it was, and ended up actually serving 1 day in jail. That was his sentence.
yeah,
Is that the
it
one
was
you're
like,
talking about?
yeah, he it was maybe it was a little bit more than that, but he was slapped with like a $500 fine and like almost no jail time. So
There was an attorney general who ended up, I don't know if she served jail time, but there's a very famous photo of an attorney general, I think in Pennsylvania, getting hauled away in handcuffs. But that's because the reason she got pinned to the wall is, nobody comes about a political position without someone else's assistance.
right.
And she got a lot of help. And then when she finally got the position, she wasn't, how should we say it, rubbing the hands that were feeding her. And so
Yep.
they took care of her.
Yeah, that's usually how that works. That's why politics is I don't think for me.
Dirty, dirty game.
Yeah, it's a very dirty game. That's why so many Americans are disgusted with the modern political arena as it stands. But we shouldn't get into that. That's only going to go down a very dark, deep path. So, that's going to be totally
Let's focus
unnecessary.
on Zach and his case.
Yeah. But I mean, the bit that John Oliver talked about is absolutely representative of the situation at hand. I mean, I think there's some statistics about Florida, having like a 95% conviction rate, for the prosecution. Like they push for this. There's prosecutors' office that push for years in jail, or people that have trophies for the number of death sentences that they get convicted. And I don't know why the mentality in prosecutors' offices is so focused on winning alone.
Ego, man. It's ego. That's all it is. And
ego.
it's like a defense attorney can be justified. Like, look at how many not guilties I have received, even though that will also be looked at as dirty. Like, how many innocent murder, how many, as they like, this is my favorite phrase, how many guilty people have you put back on the street, Mr. Foreman? The answer is zero, because all of my guilty people either go to jail or have a criminal record. You can't say that in the same sentence, because they're like, well, how do you represent a guilty person? I don't. Once they're guilty, the job is over. Like, there's no such thing. I mean, of course, they're talking about the guilty conscience, the person who comes in and says, look, I messed up. I did this, this, and this. Please help me. And then you end up helping them, and you get a very good result because the government screwed something up, or you find some evidence. You may not win on the facts, but you may file a motion to suppress and successfully win it, you know, something like that. And sure, there are technical wins, but I'm playing within the bounds of the law. I'm playing within the bounds of the rules of the game. I don't control the outcomes.
What you said there, that specific sentence, in the rules of the game, right? That very, very sentence is fundamentally a problem with our legal system. It is a game for the lawyers to play. It's a game of chess, right? You're playing with pieces to try and make through your argument, bring your argument to the jury or to the judge if it's a bench trial, right? It is a game of chess. However, justice is supposed to be blind. It is supposed to be weighed on the facts. The facts are supposed to be presented. The archetype of what the law is written for is the presentation of the facts to a jury, and the jury is supposed to weigh said facts and make a decision on the facts of the case. And those facts can be defined as different things, you know, as testimonial evidence or hard facts, whatever it might be. No matter what, they're all facts. And ethically, the state is supposed to be pursuing the truth to find the right person to put in prison or jail for the crime they committed. That is not a game, right? That part of it is not a game, but it has been made a game by prosecutors playing an underhanded game for God knows how long, right? So it's been played so long that even you, as a defense attorney, said, I'm playing within the game, the boundary of the game, because that's what it is. That's the standard set by the judiciary, by the system. How, you know, when we're looking at this, how do we hold prosecutors accountable for bending the rules to specifically put people that are innocent in prison or jail, like my brother, where they're suppressing the truth?
I mean, how many times have we heard in recent times about exonerations 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years after the fact?
Right.
Prosecutors who have long since retired, you know, they're on their deathbed and they say, oh, yeah, by the way, I withheld evidence on this case. You know, and how many times have we seen that happen in recent times? Brady violations, essentially open, unapologetic at the time, exonerating evidence being swept under the rug. Oh, this doesn't exist. Don't worry about it. We are going to get this conviction anyway. You don't need this kind of stuff. You know, don't worry about it or whatever. You're right. You're right. It has turned into a dirty, dirty battle of the egos rather than a battle of facts and evidence. Right. Because if you have exonerating evidence that is not in your possession, might as well not exist. In the possession of the defense attorney, I mean. Right. Might as well not exist, because if it's being swept under the rug, you will never be able to find out about it. And sometimes during the course of the trial or what have you, it does come to light. And then what do prosecutors suffer? Oh, my bad, judge. I'm sorry. Let me disclose that real quick. And then nothing happens. Like, oh, okay, well, things happen. Things happen. It's okay, Mr. Miss Prosecutor, please disclose. And those are the really lucky ones. Right. You know, the unlucky ones end up going to prison for 20 years. And then maybe some of them we never find out.
Which specifically happened in
that's the world we live in.
Because it was
the argument. Yeah.
It was
I still don't have a side, by the way, for the record. I still don't have a side.
That's okay.
your brother. Just because I don't have enough facts, I can't make a determination without facts. But I know there's a lot of support, and that's why I'm hosting this this podcast for you and your brother. I wish you could have been able to join us. That would have been. But also, we have to be careful. And I, as an attorney, I know even if he could have joined us, I, as an attorney, know there's only so much I can talk about because he, if the case goes up on appeal and there's a retrial, this video right here could be subpoenaed as evidence in a case, especially if he's testifying live on video. And of course, this is going to stay on my channel and so on. So anyway, it gets really, really hairy. But yeah, I'm not picking any sides. I do see that there's a lot of support. I do see that there are still some individuals who are not 100% convinced. Well, Kara Fro says, Larry, you would laugh if you saw how little and no evidence there is. It was the same scenario in the Murdaugh case. And when I called out the judge, when I called out the prosecution, when I called out the jury for getting it wrong, I was scoffed and laughed at. And that's fine. I, as a professional, I looked at the evidence. I said there is not enough for beyond a reasonable doubt. What I did not account for was the fact that it was such a small county where the jury was not voting with the evidence. The jury was voting how they felt with this right here. They weren't using this, they were using this. And because of that, they convicted. And that's fine. There's no outburst or outrage, in the Murdaugh case, because everybody hates the piece of shit. He's a thief. He's an admitted thief. He literally admitted 100 times on the stand. Yes, he took the money, millions of dollars, millions. It's kind of hard to defend an openly admitted thief and who destroyed so many lives. That's understandable. But actually, let me rephrase that. He has been getting. I saw an article just a couple of days ago that there are a bunch of women, since they know he's now single, the wife is gone, allegedly by his own hand. Since he's convicted, there's a bunch of women who are reaching out trying to hook up with Murdaugh while he's in prison. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I am not shocked, but yeah.
I'm not. There's a lot of crazy bitches out there, man. So. But hey, look, I'm not here to step on any toes. Kara, you're saying I would laugh at knowing how little or no evidence there is. Let me ask the question, okay? So now that I'm starting to get a better picture of this, the county where this case happened, what's the name of that county again in Wisconsin?
It's Kenosha County.
Kenosha.
That's
How big is Kenosha? What is the population of Kenosha County, Wisconsin?
I believe that Kenosha proper, not the county, but Kenosha itself is around 100,000 people, give or take.
Okay, so it's not small. That's a large ass county.
Yeah, I mean it's right on the border of Illinois, literally just north of Chicago.
Oh, okay. And what is the population of the county seat in Kenosha? Do you know?
That I don't know.
So let's call it about probably 55,000, somewhere in that range. Okay, so it's not small. See, in my mind, I was trying to compare it to South Carolina.
Oh, sure.
Because what was that county called? I can't remember. It starts with a C. Anyway, that population, that county is so small. It's like population 10,000 maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Tiny place. And I know I've tried cases in such small counties myself. Colleton. Thank you, Matthew. Colleton County. Colleton County, South Carolina population. Actually, bigger. Wow, I thought it was much smaller than that. Maybe because it extends out. But the piece we were in was population 10,000. Hampton County, which is right next door, is 18,000. It's actually, it says 38,000 as of 2 years ago. 38. Still fairly small. And the people,
a third of the size of Kenosha. So
right. And I have to remember, comparatively to the rest of the state, that may still be very small because Kentucky is very, very landlocked, and the population, we have counties here with like 5, 6, 7, 8, 10,000 people.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
we have tiny pockets. I'm talking like grains of sand. But at the same time, even a 40,000 people population like Colleton County compared to the next county over may be a fraction of what is there. So again, I was trying to think outside the box to see if maybe we had an argument there. So maybe there isn't. So why did the jury, vote the way that they did? What seems to be the prevailing theory? Do you know, Saul?
So there's a couple of options, and all of this is speculation, right? That we could speculate that that the jury specifically may have had a personal connection to some of the people in the case. That was actually said out loud in the courtroom, that one of the jurors was related either through a husband or through a family member to someone that was testifying. So one of the witnesses. So we have potential bias going into this, right? I don't know for sure. I can't tell you that because I've never met any of the jurors and I don't know their backgrounds. I've never done a background search on any of them to know for sure that they were coming into this case with bias. But it is a strong possibility that you had a few people that came in with bias to make a decision against my brother. The only other possibilities that I could see are my niece's testimony. There's been a major misconception about what happened during the trial. There was a bunch of TikToks and a bunch of social media that went up when during my niece's testimony. She continued to mouth statements and questions to my brother. So my brother's, sitting there watching. The judge isn't paying attention. The prosecutor's looking at his notes, looking down, and she keeps leaning over and mouthing questions without verbalizing. And he was attempting to stop her because it was inappropriate, if that makes sense, right? She's 15. Hadn't seen him in just shy of 3 years, 33 months since the last time that she had seen him in person, and hadn't been able to talk to him. There's still a gag order. He still can't talk to his children, and he was trying to get his attorney's attention to put a stop to it because it was inappropriate for the situation. And of course, when he was trying to motion for her to stop the bad behavior, not to stop the testimony, to stop the bad behavior, the misbehaving on the stand. It was spun by news media as him intimidating her, which if you look at his facial expressions during the whole thing, there's nothing, there's no menace in his eyes. There's nothing there. It's just not, it doesn't add up, right? Like there's no part of it that's like, you do that and I'm coming for you. That was never part of that exchange. If you saw the raw emotion in his eyes while she testified, it just was never there. Now keep in mind, during this situation on the other side of the gallery, my niece had lost her temper on more than one occasion, shut down the court proceedings a couple of times.
Damn.
They had to, kick the jury out. They had to take 2 different breaks, I think. And it was a big problem. Just because you have, an almost 15-year-old girl on the stand that is, mentally and emotionally completely traumatized by being forced to testify against her father. I mean, she's threatened with legal action if she doesn't. She's stuck with her mother. Like her mom filed a restraining order and got my brother's rights taken away immediately after he was arrested, and he couldn't even attend family court. He asked Kenosha to allow him to attend, and they denied him. So he couldn't even go and make any defense to family court to try and defend his position. And so they stripped him of his rights as a father, and they maintain a gag order. So he's had just shy of 3 years, and now it's 34 months of not seeing his or 35 months of not seeing his children. And I mean, this is a tragedy. This is a man that was completely restructuring his life and trying to protect his children from an abusive situation. And now he's going to sit in prison for potentially life 3 years until the appellate court gets to deal with this, up to life in prison, just because he was, C-capping the guy that his ex started dating, who had a criminal history, that didn't seem like a good guy, and had a file on his computer. So they arrested him for stalking. Like this happens in family court all the time. I can tell you with certainty that's
why I don't practice family law, for the record, because of crazy shit like that. Because there's no rules of evidence, and it's all Wild West. Go ahead.
And it is totally wild. That's why I said people searching for the silver bullet, right? And people trying to weaponize the police, trying to build a paper trail. In this situation, I had warned my brother multiple times over years when Sadie would flip out on him and try and get him to like beat her up or whatever. Like she even swung a broom at him on the twins' birthday one year, and he like snatched it out of her hand, and she called the cops on him. Like this is a situation where you have a woman who felt justified to be emotionally and physically abusive to a man, to try and weaponize the police to play victim on multiple occasions. And here we are years later, where then the first person she accuses is him when she gets to this crime scene. It's just, it doesn't add up. And that's one of the reasons why we were so completely appalled by the police action, the depth of the police investigation, the completely shady messages on Sadie's phone, talking with Rebecca about picking up another phone from Rebecca's house and arranging something that was going to happen within a week, and she didn't know when or how, and things like that. Like that was presented in the courtroom. And if you can present that this person has that kind of behavior, and the police looked at this, they reviewed this evidence and didn't find any reason to say, this is odd behavior. This time frame, this 7 days, this correlates with the disappearance of the man that's in question. We should subpoena and take both of their phone records. It never happened. They didn't do it. They didn't track their movements. They didn't run their GPSs. They didn't get into their phone calls to the depth. I mean, they didn't even talk to Rebecca until it was almost time for trial. None of it adds up. And then they have Mr. Gutierrez, who's terrible with money. He owes people like Michael Campbell a bunch of money, and what? In your experience, how many times have people killed over money? Realistically, how often does that happen? Never, right? Never happens, right? Even if you're close with them, if they owed you thousands of dollars and then they were just like, sorry. You think that's not motive for murder? It doesn't. I don't understand. From my perspective, there's a totally different picture of this situation, and the police, when processing the crime scene, there's furniture that was deliberately and carefully moved, a rug that's missing. If you're in a crime of passion, do you give a shit about the furniture in the room, right? If you brutally beat a man to death with a bat, and after he's laying there dying in a pool of blood, are you going to carefully move the coffee table over off to the side to roll up the rug, or are you just going to throw it over? It doesn't make sense. The man's shoes were missing. The little shoe tray by the door was stood up against the wall. There's blood behind it. The police never processed the shoe tray. They didn't ever question where the shoes went. They never processed the light switches. Right? They never swabbed the door handle on the freezer when they found Mr. Gutierrez's cell phone and credit cards in the freezer. Right? So they didn't even process all the information that they could have from the crime scene. The information that they did gather did not verify my brother. They actually found 2 alleles, which are pieces of DNA for the people out there that don't know what an allele is, that didn't 0% match. They did not match my brother at all. So they had exculpatory evidence. They had evidence that actually exonerated my brother, that was presented in the case, that said, look, he didn't even handle the phone. It was somebody else. And then the jury still came back with a guilty verdict. It is absolutely mind-boggling how it could have even been a guilty verdict. Not only that, but the timeline that was presented in the prosecutor's case. They even stipulated or stated in the evidence presented that they never found any footage, Not a single camera, not on the freeway interchanges in Milwaukee, which my brother would have had to drive through downtown Milwaukee through multiple traffic cameras and weather cameras that looked at all of the freeway interchanges to get all the way down to Kenosha on the time frame that they presented. Not only that, but gas stations, schools, and I'm sure doorbells on the way. They found no evidence of my brother being on the road during the time that they presented that Mr. Gutierrez went missing. Not a single camera verified it anywhere, nowhere. And then they said that he had exactly enough time from when Mr. Gutierrez's phone was put in the freezer to drive back to his residence, because the time frame on the trip was an hour and I think they said like 19 minutes or something like that, an hour and 7 minutes or whatever it was. And the reality is that he would have still had to drive past all those cameras. No evidence of that ever happening. So he would have had to drive on back roads and avoid the freeways in order to get there. It would have added an extra half hour to an hour to his drive to try and avoid all of the potential traffic cameras that they would have been able to check in the process. The information presented does not add up. He could not physically have done this crime. Mr. Gutierrez weighed 270 pounds. He was 6 feet tall, and they claimed that my brother just picked him up and carried him out without dripping anything, without dragging any blood, nothing, not an iota of evidence that indicated that he had ever moved a body from the apartment out to a vehicle, which they presumed was his minivan, at all. Not a single piece of evidence. So he would have had to deadlift a man who was either unconscious or dead onto his shoulder and haul him out, when my brother had back injuries that prevented him from doing lifting like that for years. And any time that he had attempted heavy manual labor during years since his back injury, he would be incapacitated for days afterwards. He would lay in bed in misery. And you know what they saw on the following morning? He was casually and comfortably shopping at Walmart, buying trash bags, sardines, Q-tips, and some Lysol wipes in the height of COVID. It is impossible for them to have actually presented a case with what they had that proved that he committed these crimes. As far as the stalking goes, he had his ex, his baby's mama, texting him "good night" XOXO weeks before the guy's disappearance. How can you prove that a woman is deathly afraid of a man if she's saying "good night, I love you"? None of this adds up.
Thank you for that, Saul. I just wanted to thank Viking for the gifted memberships to the channel. Thank you, Viking. We've got some questions here. Stephanie asks, Saul, how is your brother holding up?
I mean, as well as you could expect. I mean, he's determined to continue to pursue, the appeal. He's innocent, and that fire, the knowledge that the truth will set him free, that knowledge is what keeps him going. He understands that he did not commit this crime, and there's no reason for him to spend the rest of his life in prison. Is he frustrated? Yes. Is he planning on suing everyone that effectively libeled him and put him in jail and unjustly incarcerated him and affected his relationship with his children for the rest of their lives? Yeah, you're damn right he is going to sue them, and he should. But the reality is that Michael Gravely is never going to spend a day of his life in prison for lying to the court and trying to frame my brother. He's never going to do it. And nobody's ever going to hold him accountable for that. The man should be disbarred for tampering with witnesses. He should be disbarred, and he should spend time in jail, in my opinion. And that's what justice is. You don't get to throw a man in jail for years under duress and then potentially try and incarcerate him for life in a web of dishonesty and manipulation, in trying to manipulate news media and everything else, and then walk away a free man. I mean, he's a politician. He's a snake himself, but he should not be a lawyer, and he should not be allowed to practice law And furthermore, what he did should be a crime.
Should be being the key word.
Right.
Bear's Choice. So I've gotten this question. That's the reason I highlighted it. It has nothing to do with Mr. Anderson or his brother, but I just wanted to address this real quick. The Gitologist is another YouTuber with a very large following. He's almost, I think, at like 150,000 subscribers. I did not make this public because of attorney-client confidentiality. He chose to make it public, therefore I am allowed to address it, because he literally tagged me in a post right before we went to trial, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as I don't breach it first, if he chooses to release to the world who his lawyer is and everything, that's his prerogative. I have no control over that. However, what I do have control over is what, where, when, and how, and if I choose to discuss the case itself. And the answer is, I will not. So your question, what happened to Brad the Gitologist? The answer I will always give is, go ask Brad. Okay? Because just because the case is over does not mean that the attorney-client relationship is terminated. And I hold the attorney-client relationship sacred to every single case, no matter how popular or unpopular the person is, if they have 1 follower or 1 million followers. So if Brad wishes to talk about it, that is his prerogative. It's his case. If he wants to bring me on and like have a full powwow, I'm more than happy to. But on my own channel, on my own time, I refuse to breach attorney-client confidentiality, and I will not be talking about his case publicly. So if you have any questions, you can ask Brad.
Solid. We appreciate lawyers that do that, like you. Thank you.
Oh, we already addressed this one. I think Saul needs to tell the story for Larry. I think this was an earlier comment. I think we've kind of already gotten through that, unless I missed something. Do you mean like the story of?
Are there any details that I've glazed over that might have that you might be confused about what might have transpired? I mean, I could start earlier, in the deposition of what was brought to the court. So what was brought to the court is that my brother and Sadie had taken a break, to my brother's view, because that was their verbiage. But what Sadie had presented was a different story. She said that they had broken up, and that was in December of 2019. After he had given her space, which is what I believe the verbiage of the text messages were, or their exchange, they started talking again in I believe February or late January. She had started online dating. She met Rosario Gutierrez on Facebook dating around Valentine's Day of 2020. Mm-hmm. She ended up meeting him in person maybe a week or two after that, and then the first time she actually hung out with him was around I believe the first week of March of 2020. She then went to Mexico, never told my brother about it, and then arranged for childcare with a bunch of friends and strangers I shouldn't say strangers, there were people that she knew, that maybe my brother had known most of them, over the years, because they had been dating on and off for like 13 years at the time. Mm-hmm. So I had arranged childcare with friends and never notified him that she was out of the country, which is kind of a big deal because he still had parental rights at the time. He found out about that, showed up at the house, and then Rebecca, this friend that never really cared for Zach, and they never really got along. She was babysitting at the time, sleeping on the couch, and my brother showed up and woke her up and asked, what what was going on and why his children were there with her and not with him during this time. So there was an exchange where police were called, and they had accused Zach of making breakfast at 4 a.m, which I have no idea what time that transpired. It was all finger point hearsay evidence about what time that really happened. Fast forward towards the end of March, there were some exchanges between Zach and Sadie. They had argued on the phone quite a bit about the kids. The recordings on his phone. He had a smartphone and a few other versions of I think a Galaxy S6 that he had. Sadie called the smartphones his burner phones, and he had a flip phone, so he had 2 phone numbers. So in that, he had been recording, like literally just hitting the video record button while arguing with Sadie about custody with the kids. And that kind of transpired. There was like 30 videos and a file on his computer of them arguing about the children primarily, and one video where they presented in court where he said, like, yes, of course, he was jealous of her dating another man. He was with her for 13 years, and anyone would be jealous in that situation, and he still loves her, but he's moving on. And that exchange, that sentiment was sort of twisted in the court's eye, I believe. By the time the end of April,
Twisted how? Sorry.
D.A. Gravely tried to paint him as this jealous, controlling lover, and tried to claim that he was trying to.
Well, that's the only way that they win, because if the allegation is he murdered his former ex's new guy,
right.
I mean, what else could it be? Why
right.
else do you take him out?
Yeah, but even that doesn't make sense, because even psychologically, the person you're controlling is the female, right? So why would you go after the guy that you've never met when you've controlled the woman for 13 years by that argument, right? Like that math still doesn't check out. You have a 280-pound man that you're going to go try and physically confront and then beat with a baseball bat, when you have 100 some odd pound 5'6", 5'7" woman that you could easily physically dominate if that was the case. Like the risk analysis doesn't add up in that. It doesn't logically make sense. And Zach never laid a hand on her that way. So it doesn't. He was never a jealous man. My brother and I were very close. The eldest 3 of us grew up very closely together. My mom left when I was 5, and we were raised by my dad for a good part of our childhood. He had remarried at the time, but had a subsequent divorce. And then for a number of years, it was my dad and the 3 of us. So we were very, very close through our childhood, and through especially the late 80s through the mid 90s, when my dad was single, and it was really just him, and then three sons on his own. He worked his tail off to try and pay the bills, and he taught us a lot that way. But we weren't rich people. We grew up very poor. It's not like that. My dad worked for everything that he provided for us. It's not like we had a silver spoon in hand. It was never the case, and the property that Zach owned, he worked and sacrificed to earn. It was always that way. When I was 18 years old, he had challenged me to a savings race to try and pack money in the bank so we could compete, so we could try and not be destitute for our lives. This is a man that really put his family before himself, that would give literally the shirt off of his back to people that he loved and cared about in order to help them out. Like they had shown pictures of his home, and it was gutted, and we had gutted his house because there was a fire hazard, electrical fire hazard, and he refused to fix it up because he wanted to invest his money in other opportunities for earning income, because he believed that setting up the future potential of more income was more important than him living in comfort, right? So in in that logic, it was always self-sacrifice to try and propel our family forward, because we did grow up from that place, and that's who he is. He's not this jealous murderer. He's not that way. He loves his children more than he loves himself. And I mean, he's not a perfect parent. He's not a perfect man. I'm not saying that he was, and I'm not saying that he didn't make mistakes in this situation, but the reality is that he really was trying to do what was best for his kids, and that's why he was going to family court. That's why he was cleaning out bedrooms and rooms in his house and burning belongings that he didn't need or want anymore. He was just getting rid of it. It was just the fastest, easiest way to get rid of stuff that he just didn't need or want. And he was setting up bedrooms for the children because he expected to have them at least 50% of the time. And that's an important an important optic to have that was never presented in this court case, because they presented him as this manipulative, controlling monster that continued to gaslight everyone in his life. It's just not him. Like he's a guy that he, literally, like the Friday before, he had a bonfire, and my brother played D&D with us, and he skipped D&D, and he texted me and he apologized. He was like, I can't make it tonight. I'm gonna have my employees over, because the boys work for me, and have a bonfire and just hang out with them, and have some good conversation to breed goodwill with the guys that work for me. And one of them ended up testifying, in the trial. He showed up and told the judge that he was the sharp guy in the suit sitting right over there. And he's a good guy. It's unfortunate that in this situation that a woman crying wolf had placed him in this position. But leading up into April, there was a situation in Zach and Sadie's personal relationship with the children that put them together. They spent a lot of time together right around the end of April, and that meant that they were riding around in the same car together. They were talking a lot about the kids and what was going on, and even to the point where Sadie had attended, my little sister's birthday party on May the 2nd, which was right in the middle of when she claimed that my brother was stalking her. So this is a highly misrepresented case. The FBI put my eldest brother on a lie detector. They searched, the tree farm. They searched, the state park. They sent dive teams out. They had canine units. They had ATV units. They had drone units that flew over property and searched and looked for any sign of any evidence. And they came back with one spot of DNA in the back of my brother's van, which, by the way, the van was tested for blood and was completely void of all blood evidence. So that there's luminol photos that you can find that were presented in the case, that it was totally dark, completely dark. So you have this mountain of evidence, which also included pumping his septic system, removing the traps from his drains, and testing that for Mr. Gutierrez's blood. No DNA evidence came back that matched with Mr. Gutierrez. You have a legitimate mountain of evidence that actually presented that my brother could not and did not commit this crime. And if the jury had been paying attention, they would see that. And had the defense been allowed, because a lot of it was deemed, irrelevant by the prosecution, they had raised objections to a lot of the stuff being presented, would have painted a more full picture of the truth of the situation, which was a custody battle between two people, a woman that may or may not have cooked up a plan to accuse my brother of stalking because she had found a phone that my niece might have slipped under a car seat in her vehicle, and
I don't mean to interrupt, but there's one thing that bothers me the most,
yeah, go ahead.
in the sense of why, like, people are saying, like, why would Sadie is her name, right?
Yeah.
The baby mama. Sadie, like, what is her motivation? And at the end of the day, believe it or not, she does have a motive. If
Right.
she wants sole custody of the kids with Zach out of the picture, this is a very easy way to get him out completely
Right. And
for a very long. I mean, when is sentencing scheduled for, by the way?
May 16th.
May 16th. So,
Yeah.
and the range he's looking at,
I mean, he's looking at life. I mean, they
is
convicted
it
him
like
of
20 to life, or
it's
is it
well
what's
for which
Wisconsin?
charge? So you know,
The maximum.
stalking is
The
like 3 to 5, and the murder is 20 to life. The hiding of
20 to
corpse,
life. Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
everything, if he's got, no, the rest really don't matter for the most part. It probably will be, 20 to life, whatever. The judge will just issue like a life sentence and everything else
yeah.
to run concurrent. It really wouldn't matter at that point. So I was just making sure that it's a life sentence. So that's it. He's out of the picture for, I mean, everybody who practices law knows that life does not really mean life. Life means, I imagine it might be with a possibility of parole, maybe not, but that would be like he would be eligible for parole in like 25 years or something like that.
Maybe
Um,
Wisconsin also has a truth in sentencing law, so I'm not sure how that pans out, but it could be longer than 25.
yeah, yeah. So, well, it could be, yeah, yeah. It won't be shorter though. It won't. Will definitely not be shorter than 20. And by then, the kid is how old is the kid now?
My niece is 15 on oh man this weekend.
She'll
So
be 35
so
at
yeah,
the earliest that he would be
yeah,
able to get out. So
right. And
obviously,
I
a
have
full
two
blown adult
nephews
with
that are
kids of
7.
her own, and possibly even a grandmother. I mean, you never know.
Right.
It'll be a bit young to be a grandmother, but the world is weird these days. I just saw a dating clip of a man going on a date with a woman that is biologically a man, but is claims, well, identifies as a woman. And they went
Sure.
on a date, and she, I guess you call her she, the video did not specify, she full disclosed, like at the outset, I am a biological male, like my parts down there, but I identify as a woman. I hope like you're okay with that. And he was like, yeah, yeah, sure. And I'm sitting there watching this going, like, is this the future of dating shows? Like, this is going to be what you see is not always what you get. So it's going to be very, very unique world that we're living in. I mean, nothing is certain anymore. You're sitting in a bar and there's a gorgeous woman next to you. You better double check. You know what I mean?
I think Crocodile Dundee did it the best, so we can leave it at that.
How did he do it? Sorry.
You never saw the movie
I've seen the
where
movie, but it's been years. I was a
where
kid when I saw it.
he's out at the bar and there's I guess in this day transgender or whatever at the time it was a transvestite that was standing there and started hitting on him and he walks up and just reaches his hand up between the person's legs and said, "That's a bloke." So I mean, if anybody has seen that scene in Crocodile Dundee, it was the 80s. It was a very different time.
Very different time. Um, yeah. Anyway, Julio says, thanks for sharing with us on here. We need more attention on this. Hashtag free Zachariah Anderson. Thank you, Julie. She also says, Larry, think Rittenhouse prosecutors. That's where. I wonder what that was in reference to. Sorry, Julie, I didn't catch it in time. I was entranced listening to Saul talk about the case. Rittenhouse prosecutors, that's where. Okay, well, if we figure it out, I'll come back to it.
I mean, the Rittenhouse prosecutors were trained by Gravely, so
that's
the
where
same
they learned.
prosecutor's office, yeah.
Selena Stovall says, I love you. Please let Saul talk. He left at mistrial. So I think we've already gotten past that. Just slightly. This is an interesting comment I saw from Ashley Elrod. She says, no one from the jury has spoken publicly. Like, if you remember in the Murdaugh case, there were, within 2 days of the verdict, we had 3 jurors who gave independent and then collectively, all 3 of them together, interviews about how they reached the decision and what they talked about and blah, blah, blah. And it was complete horse shit, but they still felt very confident to come forward. I mean, even in the Masterson case, he's being retried as of 2 days ago. But the first case, there was the four-person, the African American, the tall African American male who was sitting in the front row. You guys don't know this because there were no video cameras, but I'm telling you, he was sitting in the front row, second seat from the right in the front row, and he ended up being the four-person. He's the one with the convicted pedo son. And there's that whole issue of like, he did not disclose that during jury selection, and did he have to? Did he not have to? Did the defense know about it? Because there was some allusion to the fact, like, if there was my child sitting in his closing argument, he said that, like, if it was my kid, I would feel so powerless and defenseless, blah, 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 blah. And there's like that whole allegory of, was he talking to that man directly? Like, oh, he's talking about like my son too. That's what happened to my son. My son didn't do this, and blah, blah, blah,
Right.
blah, blah. And then he goes back and convinces everybody, That's why Masterson is, I think, one of the reasons, I shouldn't say the only reason, but one of the reasons that Masterson is being retried. Now, Masterson was not acquitted. They hung on all three, leaning towards acquittal. I think it was like 10-2, 7-5, and like 8-4, something like that, split across the three Jane Does. So now it's being retried. But again, you have a juror speaking publicly. How long has it been since the verdict? 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
It's been at least about a month.
About a month. It's been 30 days, and not a single person has come forward. Now, could we chase them down? Potentially. But no media outlet is doing it because they're not interested. There's no fire. There's no panache in this case.
There's no juice worth the squeeze. Yeah.
Bingo.
Yeah.
I mean, for God's sake, the 1MDB case that was happening with billions of dollars of corruption and, presidents and vice presidents and Hollywood actors like Leonardo DiCaprio and this French rapper by the name of Mikhail in the crosshairs. He's the defendant. That case also has gotten absolutely no traction whatsoever either. So it kind of, the pendulum swings both ways, although that one doesn't have any traction for different reasons. That one is too politically connected to where if media outlets start to raise ire on this, a lot of the people involved in that trial fund the media.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a conflict of interest, if you will.
Of course, sweep that under the rug. But you're right.
Yeah.
The jurors have not come forward, and they haven't made any motion to come forward, and it's something that would be good to hear, like what rationale was going on, who was really the powerful voice, and why they had argued for guilty in such a weak case, like legitimately
unanimously. You have 12 people.
Right.
All in agreement. This is not just like a one person going, we should, and then 4 agree, and then 5 disagree, or whatever.
Well, the question is, did they do it, like democratically? Did they have a vote where there are some people that were saying, well, I think yes, I think no, and then they were hung, and they were like, well, I don't want to sit here for another day because it's already been 4 weeks that I've dedicated out of my life to this trial, and I don't want to do this anymore. So the prosecution, ran over on their time. They actually went days past the projected timeline on what the case was supposed to run to. So the defense didn't even have people that were able to take the stand because the subpoenas had run out. Because the prosecution had legitimately filibustered the courtroom so long, just spewing stuff that was not relevant or connecting my brother to the actual case at hand, the case in chief. Including other acts, evidence, and all kinds of stuff that it actually pushed it into a zone where now subpoenas ran out. Now there's witnesses that the defense had that could not come and testify, and we had more of a headache. And then what? And then you have a jury that's fatigued, right? A jury that's just over being there and over being just told stuff that isn't relevant to the case. And then you might have someone that's a victim of domestic violence or had a best friend that was, or something like that clearly identifies the presented male aggressor as guilty. Like we don't know that wasn't an issue. We don't. We don't know the history of these people. And they could have lied during the voir dire. We have no idea.
Right. CLTIL says that the jury deliberated for about 10 hours. So they were not all on board in the beginning to convict or to acquit, obviously. So there were some opinions being thrown around. Maybe they deliberated. Maybe they did something else. Denise asks, Larry, can the appeal be held in another state? No, it has to be appealed in the state where the case had happened.
Yeah. Until it's an elevated past the Wisconsin Supreme Court, and then it can be tried in the federal court system.
Correct. Nicholas, I always love getting donations from Nicholas because with two reasons. Number one, he used to just be a commentator on like other channels, including my own. He would just come in, and he's this brilliant, funny guy. By the way, if you haven't checked him out yet, chat, and whoever's watching, go subscribe to his channel. Check out his videos. He's a super cool YouTuber. He finally got his channel off the ground. He just got it monetized like 2 weeks ago. He said it will take him like a year to monetize, but somehow he's like, oh, I got it within like 2 weeks. I'm like, brother, welcome to the YouTube game. He's really funny. He's got long hair. He looks like a fucking Viking. He talks with like a very thick, it's not Norwegian. It's like
he's Swedish.
Swedish accent. Yes,
he's a big Swedish man, and he's actually covered the case quite a bit. Nicholas actually said that he has a 5x7 rug, and he weighs about 270 pounds. And I told him that he needs to we're either going to have to fly to Sweden and videotape me picking him up in the rug, or he's going to have to come visit us here in Wisconsin. We've talked some trash about that. Nicholas is great. I encourage everybody watching to go check out his videos. Absolutely like and subscribe to his content. He's a real funny guy.
Yep. And the second reason why I love Nicholas is every time he donates, because he donates in his local currency, I get sex.
That's true.
So I thank you, Nicholas, for the 50 sex. It's like a running joke on our channel. It's always good to receive sex on the channel. I am on a stream now. He says, oh, he's streaming right now. Well, don't go anywhere. You can go after. Just wanted to say I support Zach and his family wholeheartedly. So that's awesome. That's awesome. Thanks for stopping by, Nicholas. I don't even know if you're still in the chat, especially if you are live. This is from a while ago. I just now caught it. But another one from Julie. Julio says the mom found the phone and cards in the freezer after cops processed the scene. One guy with 3 women on the hook. Now, one of them investigated, even though one was there that night and one found, I guess that's on scene. Okay, so let's take a step back because I have no idea what the heck is going on here since I'm not familiar. The mom. Okay, so who's mom? First of all,
I can explain the situation that she's describing. So very specifically, Mr. Gutierrez's mother, Celia Patterson, when cleaning the apartment out, found Mr. Gutierrez's cell phone stuffed in the freezer. Right. So
after the cops have already searched it,
cops have released the scene. So it was.
So they fucked up. They did not fully cover
every.
Wow. Well, because who searches the freezer, right?
Always look in the freezer. Didn't we learn from Dahmer? Come on. So I know that was dark.
Yeah, but I got you. I'm with you.
But realistically, so Celia finds the phone in the freezer. I already touched base on the phone, how they processed the phone for DNA evidence. They found 2 alleles, and they found that these 2 alleles did not match my brother. They matched someone else that was not in the DNA profiles that they had tested against other people in the case. Insofar, they had tested against Celia Gutierrez, my brother, and then I don't remember if they tested against Sadie, but they had included a handful of people, and it wasn't like a massive search of everyone that Mr. Gutierrez owed money to and things like that. They did not include those individuals in the DNA profile matching process. They also did not fingerprint the handle of the freezer after this was discovered. So even though this evidence was found after they processed the crime scene, the cops that took it into evidence didn't say, "Oh shit, we have to go process the handle to see if there's a fingerprint left behind of anyone that might have been suspicious." You would expect to find Celia's fingerprints on it. She was cleaning the freezer out. You would expect to find Mr. Gutierrez's fingerprints on it. That's true. But whom else might have left fingerprints behind? And I don't know enough about fingerprint processing to know that it would have been conclusive in any way. However, it was still never tested. And that's an important thing to recognize, is that they still did not process the whole crime scene even after the fact.
Did the defense raise that issue at trial?
Yep. Yeah, they did. So you have this issue with the phone in the freezer. Now, the rest of this comment.
What's with this 3 women on the hook? What is is he like a woman's guy? Like, did he have a bunch of girlfriends?
So he was dating several women off of Facebook dating and potentially some other apps as well. So he had Sadie. He had a woman that showed up at his apartment on the night that he allegedly went missing, had 40 minutes of unexplained time during that time frame, and was allegedly the last person that had communicated with him that evening when he went missing. So you have this woman that showed up that somehow had 40 minutes of her timeline just completely missing. They never downloaded her information. They never tracked her phone to see exactly where she was. They didn't do any of that with her device. They didn't suspect her at all. They left her completely out as a suspect, even though she admitted to being on the property the night the guy went missing. You have Sadie, like I had said earlier, and then you have another woman, Kim, I can't remember, Lavora, that he was talking to, and he hadn't met her in person yet, but they had been talking starting in early February, the same time frame that Mr. Gutierrez had started talking with Sadie. So he had 3 women that he was playing, and the woman that showed up at his apartment the night he went missing was showing up for a hookup, and he lied to Sadie about where he was going and who he was spending time with that night. Immediately following her telling him that she thought maybe she wanted Mr. Gutierrez to be her person for a while. So, he basically, gave a heart emoji, liked the message, gave her a virtual fist bump, if you will, like, cool story, bro, and then invited another girl over to bang her that night. And then to her testimony, he never answered. And then she disappeared. And she said, "I'm leaving," and claimed that she was worried about him and took off. So there's she left her house to her text message to him at about 20 after 9, which was about 41 minutes away from Mr. Gutierrez. It puts her getting to the house, or 20 to 9. It was 8:20. Getting to his house at 9:01 to 9:05, somewhere in there, depending on construction and whatever else. She texted him that she had arrived at 9:40, 9:45, somewhere in that time frame, and then had texted him wondering what was happening at 10:10 p.m. And then the phone, that was the last message to the phone, I believe, and the last event on his phone was a change in position or something like that at 10:40 when the phone had rung. I might be remembering those exact timestamps incorrectly, but that was roughly the time frame on her visit. But there's still a bunch of time that's totally unexplained. Never looked into.
Right. Ashley Elrod, thank you for the donation. # free Zachariah Anderson. Rock on emoji.
That's I love you in sign.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I did not know that. I thought it was like a gesture or something.
No, it's I love you.
Interesting.
Very specifically, Zach used it with his children. So
I saw that interview. Yes, the 4 minute. Who did that interview, by the way?
That was a member of our group that set up a video chat and then posted that with my permission on the group.
Holly
Explaining.
Moore. Yeah, Holly Moore even writes, Larry, Zach himself wanted me to tell you thank you very much for taking the time with Saul. He's welcome. I guess you're in communications with him, Holly, on his case. And Solomon, this is to you. Zach said to tell you, I love you, little brother.
Yeah. Zach told me he was gonna probably call Holly and talk to her while I was on with you tonight. So that was expected. But tell him that I love him and that I'm here again speaking the truth on his behalf. That's what this is about. This isn't trying to steal justice from the Gutierrez family. And I keep going back to that in every interview that I do. That what was done was not just to their family or ours. What should have been done was a ground-up investigation to find the real perpetrator, not follow a finger-point accusation, not put on the blinders of confirmation bias, but to really find the person that did this, the person that made Mr. Gutierrez disappear, whomever that might be, is still at large and should be in prison. They've created a whole nother family of victims. You know, my brother's children will carry this for their whole lives, that he was arrested for this, that he was prosecuted for this. My niece herself put on the stand to testify against him under duress. You know, this is not okay. It's not all right. And it's a tragedy for both of our families. And I can only offer the Gutierrez, Mr. Gutierrez's family, his children, his mother, my deepest condolences for what occurred. And I hope that they find resolution and real justice. Real justice is just not my brother spending his life in prison. It's finding the person that did this and putting them in prison.
Right. Julie says, Jesus, Larry, get it together. LOL. You can't even believe this case. I've been listening. We've been here for an hour and 40 minutes. Why are you giving me shit? I'll take it. Whatever. Julie has been around for ages. She's allowed to give me shit. Crystal Dennis says, Larry, you have no idea. It is wrong in so many ways. Just insane. You will be convinced. Hashtag free Zachariah Anderson. And I saw your other comment or comments. She's obviously been very, very much a proponent. And look, I understand. I get it. I understand where everybody is coming from, but give a brother time, yo. Jesus. They're just like trying to pound it into me. Like an hour and a half later, Larry, you're going to be absolutely convinced. And that's just not how life works. You all know that. And Eliza, there you go. You just literally beat me by 2 seconds. Larry, 2 hours ain't enough to really see the injustice that has been done. And I agree. I will definitely need time to process. And somebody also commented I should watch the whole trial. I wish I could. I wish I had the time to just set aside and start watching the trial top to bottom. We'll figure it out. We'll figure out a way to get to the bottom of this if I'm able. And if not, there's plenty of other avenues for justice. I hope. I pray that I'm not alone. That would be terrifying if I'm the only one who can help. That's not something I would ever wish upon anyone.
I mean, if you're looking for a couple of reviews, Nicholas did a few things, a few comments about like potential closing statements and his disbelief of the case. Also, Michigan Law Show attorney David Helm, he had a video where we're at a certain point in the trial. It was so ridiculous that he dubbed it the Muppet Show, and then started to have little images of the Muppets in the upper corner of the screen when people were talking. So he had assigned a Muppet to each individual in the courtroom, which is hilarious in itself. But he also did a breakdown of even the opening 2 minutes of the closing argument by the prosecutor, and then started playing clips from the case, just going back to the trial, proving that he was just lying through his teeth in the closing argument. It's a miscarriage of justice.
Matthew says, thanks for setting this up, guys. Really helps get the word out. If you are up for it, Larry, shill the Give, Send, Go.
Thank you, Matthew. Yeah, so clearly, as you are aware, working in the legal system, that the cost of an appeal is very high. We have some issues to bring up. We're trying to raise money to hire some private investigators to dig up the truth, because the police refused to do it. So we're trying to do our diligence to try and find whomever may have perpetrated this crime and provide that exculpatory evidence to the appellate court. That's what we're setting up. What we set up our GiveSendGo for is specifically to raise money, crowdsource, to be able to pay for some of these legal fees, to be able to pay for some of these extra costs that weren't really foreseen, because a guilty verdict in this case seems so far fetched. So we're trying to figure it out as a family, and we're just asking for help from people that believe in justice, that saw what was done to my brother, that understand that what they did in that courtroom was not right or fair, and they understand that what was presented was not the whole truth, and that we need to try and rectify this. It's I believe Martin Luther King said that injustice anywhere is stealing justice from everywhere, or everyone, or whatever it is.
I know what you're trying to say. Yeah, I know that quote.
But there's truth in that. We have a situation where we have an injustice, perpetrated against my brother, and that creates a situation that we all should be really concerned about in the execution of the law.
I added the Facebook group link and the GiveSendGo in the description below. So if you're watching it right now, just refresh your screen. Or if you are watching this after this is already public, then you should be able to have access to those links.
If you would rather, get a T-shirt and do something like that, we also have the T-shirt links. For those of you that would rather have something, solid for that, all the proceeds from our bonfire website, which you can find on our Facebook group, all go to the legal proceeds for Zach. This is all important, and again, I couldn't reiterate it enough. If you're a member of the other camp, if you believe that the Gutierrez family deserves financial support and justice, by all means, please go give to them. They're victims as well. But what I'm trying to do is to raise money for my brother's defense, to bring it, to make sure that he doesn't spend 25 years in prison, or 20 years, or 15 years in prison before the appellate court does what's correct, because that's not justice. Making a man sit in prison, ruining his life, ruining his relationship with his children, is not justice based on a finger point accusation. Just isn't.
Moonflower says, thank you, Larry. #free Zachariah Anderson. Thank you for that, Moonflower. I just had something highlighted, and there we go. Question: is the DA and law enforcement still searching for Gutierrez? Bet not. Probably not, I would say.
No, they couldn't get a full DNA profile for Mr. Gutierrez, because his dad is also missing. And so they filed the missing person, report with the National Registry. That way, if someone finds the remains, they can identify his remains if he is indeed deceased. Because, truth be told, they never actually proved that he was dead.
Right. It's me, Josie81 says, Larry, thank you for having Soul on. What happened to Zach can happen to anyone. We need to spread the word. I think
I'm sure that was a word.
The word to the world, maybe something like that. Just kind of mash it together. #free Zachariah Anderson. Thank you. It's simple Josie81. Crystal Dennis says, we still love you. We will give you time, just not 25 years, smiley face. Thank you for having soul. Absolutely. And Lighthouse Sykes says, enjoy Italy. Thank you. I'm leaving in 3 days, Saturday, whatever Saturday is. My time frame, my time clock right now is completely scattered because I've been so busy, and I don't know what day of the week it is. I'm just treading along until Saturday, and I leave at like 1 p.m. So it's kind of nice. Can't complain there.
It was beautiful. Yeah.
And thanks for giving Solomon time to share Zach's story. Of course. The new car is doing well. Thanks, Kime. I took her out. I finally got a license plate. You know where they really get you? It's not the price of the car.
Nope.
It's the taxes to get the fucking plate.
Yep.
That's where they get you. When the clerk looked at me, I think she damn near fainted because she looked at me and she's like, this is how much I make in 6 months. And I'm paying that in like one lump sum as taxes on the car. I mean, I felt bad for her because she was not ready for that. Because she actually asked me, she was like, are you sitting down? I'm like, yes, I know what's coming. She's like, I have a number in my head. And she's like, what do you think it is? And I told her what it is. And actually, I bet higher than it was. She's like, no, it's this. And I'm like, oh, it's not as bad as I thought. And that's when she damn near fainted.
Yeah, and the insurance, like Eliza said, that's where it catches up to you, right?
Right. Well, the insurance is actually not that bad. It's only like, I say only. Again, it's amazing when you come to a point in life where numbers mean different numbers mean different things than when they used to be. It's only, just under 4,000 a year. So when you really think about it, it could have been a lot worse, It's comprehensive. So
But
Tiffany asks, do what?
I said, at least it's comprehensive. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want to mess around. Larry, write up my 5,000 words research paper. Go to ChatGPT. Why are you asking me? Do I look like a AI program? Well, we're coming up on 2 hours here, Sol. Do you have any I don't want to say last words because that seems very dark. Do you have any parting words that you would like to share with us before you leave?
Well, I mean, there's some specific arguments that were made in this case that tried to paint my brother as a monster, weaponizing my niece against him. The fact that the DA had twisted her enough, had spent enough time prepping her before putting her on the stand, that she called her own father the defendant, made me sick to my stomach. You have a prosecutor that I, in all fairness, I would ask that everyone that was disgusted by his performance, his mouthing along with witnesses and what he did to file a grievance against him in the Wisconsin State Bar, that specifically, that man should be disbarred for what he did. It's disgusting what he thinks is justice and what his aims were in this case, specifically citing that he had a personal interest in keeping my brother in jail, even though he was at that point still an innocent man. That in itself, a man that twisted does not deserve the office of prosecutor. I'll reiterate that we do not want people to be on the internet flaming Sadie or anyone that is beloved by Rosalio on the internet. We're not calling for a war of words by anyone. Sadie is still the mother to my niece and my nephews. She's still an extended member of our family, regardless of the situation. And the stuff that's on the internet will last forever. Please treat her with respect and dignity. Did she do things that were wrong? Yes, I, without a doubt, absolutely believe that. However, it's not going to be any better Nothing's going to make the situation better, including people, attacking her on the internet. Please don't do that. So please, respectful discourse with everyone involved. Everyone in this case is a victim of whomever perpetrated this crime, and I call for the love of God, the Kenosha PD. I know they won't do it, but to reopen the case, to pursue the other leads that they have, to find justice for Mr. Gutierrez and his family, and to release Zach. This is not the way justice is served. This is incorrect. This is a miscarriage of justice. It is an egregious abuse of power, and I would like to see this righted sooner than later, ideally. But I know that no matter what we do, it's going to be a couple of years before it gets there. Oh, and I guess lastly, please believe in our cause. Go to our GiveSendGo. Please donate to us if you're able.
And sorry to interrupt. I want you to finish. And Angel, I don't know which question it is. If you can repost it, Corn Popes. Go ahead, Saul. Sorry.
Okay. And if you would like to purchase the T-shirt, please do. It goes to the same fund. Anyone that's able to give, we appreciate your support. Join us on the Facebook group. I'm continually humbled by the number of people that saw through what the DA did in Kenosha. This gross injustice that we all had to stomach, going to verdict and then gain support. I get to tell Zach how many people join the Facebook group. It's one of the things that he looks forward to when we talk. How many people are we at? Is this question very often? How many people support us? He specifically has received a number of letters from our supporters that have written letters from all over the world that let him know that they really identify with what happened in his case, that they had a friend or that they were personally slighted in family court in a lot of the same ways, and that somehow his case just struck a little too close to home. Thank you all for your support.
Yes, and this bleeds very nicely into the question. Thank you, Corn Pope, for sharing it again. I'm sorry I missed it. Can people overseas file grievances towards Gravely? I mean, nothing is really stopping you. You have the mailing address. You are more than welcome to write letters, write emails. Now, how effective is it going to be? How noticeable are they going to be? That's a question I don't know the answer to. What I can say is that volume usually speaks volumes, no pun intended. So when you have one person writing a letter, sure, that's one thing. If they get like 1,000 letters from 1,000 different people, now you may have caused a dent in the way that they are looking at things. That's the difference. Because anybody can write one letter, but 1,000 letters means there's a collective organization that believes a certain way and they're wanting to be heard. But again, let's say you do, and let's say you do make a dent. What effect would that have on the case? Probably none. More than likely none. But your voices will have been heard at the very least. So
the more the better.
So right. I appreciate your presence here. Thanks for coming on. I know the Facebook group has been very anxious about trying to get me to do this. And I've been getting messages from, sometimes it's the same person. They feel like, it feels like two people, because they'll message me, or three people. They'll message me on Instagram, on Facebook, and on Twitter. And I'm like, it's the same bloody person just trying to reach me on like 3 different platforms. But I know enough of you reached out to where I decided to do this, having relatively, like I said, very little knowledge about the case. But just the fact that there is such a community, communities don't just grow out of nothing. There's usually a cause that unites everybody. And I wanted to thank you all for joining me. I wanted to thank you all for coming. We're not done yet. We're just going to let Saul go. But we're not finished yet with the live stream. So if you're still here, don't go anywhere. Saul, I wanted to thank you so much for hopping on, my friend.
Yeah, thank you very much. And as oh, I got to back it out for your camera. As my brother had signed so many times, to his children. Thank you for your support. We love and appreciate all of you for what you do for us.
You got it, brother. Godspeed. Good luck with the new baby. Congratulations again. And good luck on your clinicals.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Bye, sir. Well, that was interesting to say the least. Definitely quite what I expected. Based on everything I have read, everything I have seen, everything I have received from you all about this case. It seems, there are really two types of cases in American jurisprudence, any jurisprudence in the world. There are two types of cases. There are the cases that come and go, and there are cases that last forever. Examples are the Johnny Depp trial, O.J. Simpson, Kyle Rittenhouse, the Michael Jackson case. What was that lady in Florida that allegedly got acquitted? Oh my God, her name is on the tip of my tongue. Help me out, chat. Who am I thinking of? Oh my goodness, I can't think of it right now. But anyway, who knows? Maybe Zach Anderson's case is going to be added to that list of cases that will live on in infamy. Casey Anthony, thank you. Casey Anthony. Like nobody expected, really, I think, Kyle Rittenhouse to turn into a quote unquote celebrity. Essentially, that's what he is. He's turned into a celebrity, even though he wasn't before the trial. He just was a kid at the wrong time, wrong place. And he was armed. It was a Second Amendment case. And this case is also related and tied in a way to the Kyle Rittenhouse case, because Zach Anderson's judge is the same judge that was in the Kyle Rittenhouse case. So, yeah. Now, before I forget, what kind of cat dad / streamer would I be if I hadn't given you an opportunity to have some Zinnia time? Because I know you all missed her. I know you all have not seen her in a while. And of course, she is perched up at her usual spot on my gaming chair. Because when I relinquish that chair, I swear to God, you guys, it's like she takes the fuck over. She just sits there. I mean, it's a comfortable. Oh, we get some yawnsies. It's a comfy chair, and she knows it. Plus, it's leather. I don't know what it is with cats and leather. They just love leather. She's like the cutest, though. She is the absolute. When I went to Washington yesterday, I know it's so weird to say. I went to Washington, D.C. yesterday. Like I flew for literally a day. I left at like 9 p.m. Oh man, she's been sleeping. I left at like 9 p.m. and I came back like literally, or not yesterday, sorry, the day before yesterday. I left like Tuesday or Monday, whatever the days are of the week. What's the first one? Monday. And then I came back Tuesday. I was literally in Washington for like 18 hours to get my global entry, which just got approved. So now I have global entry, which is really nice. Oh, and I also signed up for this thing. It's called what is it called? Clear. It allows you to skip the line if you have Clear. It's kind of nice. I don't know what it's all about, but I'm gonna test it out at least for a little bit. Um, let's see if I can get a better vantage point on Zinni. Hi, Zinni. Maybe we can do a top down. Can we do a top down view? There we go. Look at that. That is a kitty. That is a kitty. Her name is Zinnia, and she knows that she runs this place, as you can obviously tell by those ears. Julio, thanks for the donations, by the way. I really appreciate you. She says the same judge, but also not the same judge. He's like a shell of himself compared to the Rittenhouse trial. Right. So that's what I think I've noticed people have been saying, that it's the same person, but it's not the same personality with respect to the case. So it's like a shell of a man of what he used to be, which is, it's upsetting, but it's fine. People change, especially after they go through like surgery and stuff. Hi, Zinni. The lighting on the camera makes her look so much more paler. Like she's much darker in person. Let me turn the flash off. See if that. Yeah, see that those are her real colors. When you take the flash off, but you can't see her now. She's like in the dark, which kind of sucks. That's why I have to turn the flash on. Otherwise, you can't really like. Otherwise, you can't see her. Like this is much better. Yeah, I think that's what happened, Olga. That was the horseshoe scar that not Zach Soul was talking about. Blinded by the light, wrapped up like a deuce in the middle of the night. What was that song about? Who wraps up their deuces in the middle of the night, by the way? I swear to God, it's like, is that an Amber Heard song? Wrapping up your deuce in the bed sheets in the middle of the night? I never understood that song. Blinded by the light, wrapped up like a deuce in the middle of the night. She's super cat. You see, she's flying. No, Zinni does not really scratch my leather chair. Thank goodness. I mean, she will sometimes like climb up on it and try to get my attention. Poker twos. It was a car. I don't know. Maybe. Maybe. I wouldn't know. So, yeah. If you all don't have any more questions, I guess we can sign off. I just wanted to make sure to give you all a dose of Zinnia before I go. And yeah, revved up like a deuce. Oh, I thought it was wrapped up like a deuce, like wrapping it up, like you're about to, like covering yourself with a sheet, or. Well, Renee asks, is there an association that can write an amicus brief for Zach? There is, but you're not going to like it. It's the UCLA. But they've kind of burned every bridge in the universe ever since they supported Amber. So Yeah, that's not going to happen. I don't think anybody's going to be appealing to the UCLA anytime soon, going, hey, so we know how much you hate Johnny Depp and how much you've shit on him. But also, do you mind like helping us out in this thing right here? Yeah, that's not going to happen anytime soon, more than likely. But the ACLU is one avenue. Who else? I don't even know. I don't even know. But anyway, I wanted to thank you all for joining me. Thank you all for stopping by. I know I haven't been streaming a lot, so thanks for those of you who joined us. Don't forget to like this video, comment below, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I will see you all in the next video, probably either in Italy or after I come back. Bye, everybody.